Okay, that's good. Now, I wanted us to introduce ourselves to a new topic today. It's called computer networks. Last week, we were looking at the various departments in the IT, various departments in the IT section or the IT department. And we looked at several. We looked at system analyst, database administrator, computer librarian, all those things, and their functions. And that was it. That was a whole topic. We were done with that one. So today we're going to start a new topic, which is called computer networks. Computer networks. And if I can share my screen here, I'm looking at this one here. It's in the week 14 to week 14 of the people who are doing the DBM. They are doing computer concepts of computer networks, functions of networks, computer types of computer networks, configuration of networks, internet uses, electronic email. So this one is going to take us some few days, some few like lessons, like 3 or so, to complete. It's computer networks. I mean to understand there are some guys from Mombasa. I think they have already been introduced to this topic, but I'm sure the other campuses we've not covered this one. So I'm just going to introduce you, and then we proceed. So here we have a slide. Of course, I don't have we still have to write. This is just an introduction, part of the introduction to the session today. And so here we're going to look at the introduction to networks, importance of networks, and types of networks. Of course, networks is much wider than what we have here. In fact, when you talk about networks, we have a whole course. It's called Cisco. Some of you may choose to go that direction later on after you're done with the this NEC course, this NEC diploma. You can still go and maybe specialize in one area, like the Cisco. Cisco deals with networking, pure networking. How you can connect one computer, how you can connect several buildings with the computers, how you can do CCTV cameras for a whole building and such things. So that's what we call networking. It's also known as telecommunication and such things. Yeah, so it's wide, and it takes several years. Actually, it's a course, and it requires you to keep on upgrading. So it does not end. Once you're done with the coursework, you still have to like subscribe after every few months to do some refresher courses on the same. Yeah, so it's pretty wide. There are books for networks, and they are also pretty huge, big books on networks. But for us, we are just looking at the introduction to networks. It's not going to be as wide as in those other sessions. Like, for example, the guys who are doing diploma in IT, or everybody, including the guys who are doing CCIT, once you get to Diploma 3, there's a certain unit called data communication. Now, data communication is all about networks, how computers network, how you can network computers, how you can clip cables, all those things. You'll do it in diploma session, that is Diploma 3, the very last module in NEC. And it's pretty wide, and you'll see it. There are calculations, there are mathematics, there is what we call the IP addresses. You have to know how to create IP addresses, subnet masks, and all those things. Gateways, how you can connect your computer to the internet, and such things. So for now, we're just going to look at introduction to networks, importance of networks, and types of networks. Of course, this is a very brief introduction. Then we're going to get into some writing, because most of the notes that I have are actually hard copy. This is just some few notes to introduce us to what is networks. So introduction to networks. What is computer networks? Whenever we talk about computer networks, we say that is a group of 2 or more computers, systems linked together. So that is the definition of network. When you have more than 2 computers connecting together, linked together, that's what we call a network. Or for example, when you have several people. We have the Safaricom network. Safaricom is a network because you can see there's all these phones connected together to communicate. Which other network? We also have Airtel. Airtel is another form of network because we have all these many phones. Of course, phones are also in the category of computers. Yeah, so we have all those phones connected together for the purpose of communication. So that is also another example of a network. Even here where we are currently, what we are doing, you have your own device, you have your own machine, you have your own phone at home. What we are doing currently, we are in a network. It's only that our network is somehow internet. We are using the internet. And of course, when you talk about the internet, that one is a bigger term, it's wider than the network. Network is, as you can see, it's two or more computer systems linked together. When you talk about internet, simply says it's internet, interconnection of networks. Okay, of course, we'll be looking at that one later as we continue. So a network is a group of two or more computer systems linked together. Okay, what are the types of links used to create a computer network? Now, for you to create a computer network, there are several devices that you need. You need to do that. And here they are. We have cables. Of course, you need cables. That is, if you're not using Wi-Fi, you need cables to connect your computers. You also need telephone lines. Of course, telephone lines also can fall under the category of the cables. Also, you need radio waves. That is for if you're using Wi-Fi, things like Wi-Fi. Satellites, of course, if you are doing long distance communications, like if you're transmitting data from here, Kenya, to US, there are satellites involved in that communication. Infrared light beams, this is a traditional method of data transmission. It's no longer being used. And before the introduction of Bluetooth, we used to have these infrared light beams being used on phones. We used to have phones that would transfer data using infrared. I have one phone. I used to have it. That is in the year from year 2005 and below. Simu zilikuwa zinatumia. They were not using these Bluetooth, the one that we use and file shares, GWAT, sender, and such. So for you to transfer photo from one phone to another, you had to have this infrared light beams. Of course, it's another example of these infrared light beams that we use is the remote controls, a remote control and a TV. A remote uses infrared light beams to transmit data. Yeah, and this simply means that when you're using this infrared beam, you have to be on the line of sight, as in you have to be directly opposite to the receiving device. Like for example, if you are changing a station at home and I come and stand before you, what will happen? You'll not be able to change the station. Yeah, that is because infrared light beams, they require somebody to be on the line of sight, or the sender and the receiver should be directly opposite to each other. Else, you're not going to be able to transmit. Of course, with the concept of now remote, you understand what we mean by infrared beams. Yeah. Okay, now we have importance of networks. What do computer networks, why do computer networks exist? Let me go back to this one. So we have all these ones. Of course, there are other types of links that you need to do communication. There are so many other. These just but examples, simple examples, but there are more. There are other examples that we'll be looking at during this course. Now, importance of networks. Why do computer networks exist? Of course, one of the main reasons as to why you need computer networks is that you'll be able to share expensive resources. You'll be able to share expensive resources within a group of users, such as printers. You realize that one printer costs 35,000. Okay, the cheapest printer would cost 20,000. So can you imagine you as an entrepreneur? You have this company. Okay, this company now, and you have 5 employees, and you have to buy a printer for each and every employee. How much is that? 20,000. The cheapest printer, I think, cheapest is 28,000 actually. 28,000 times 5 employees in that organization of yours. So you see, it's very expensive. So with computer networks, you lower expenses in that you are able to share those expensive resources like printers. printers. Yeah, so you find that those 5 machines in that company of yours can actually use one printer comfortably without any issue. That is one of the reasons for using networks. We have another one to enable exchange of files or to transfer or receive files within a group of users. So that is very true. When you have networks, you are able to exchange data quite easily without issue. Okay, to transfer or files, sending and receiving files is quite easy. Unlike long time ago, before we had networks, if you are to send a file, it had to take several days before it the receiver gets it. Another one is to allow electronic communication. So when you have computer networks, it allows you, or it enhances communication, electronic communication. So this may include the use of technology such as electronic mails, instant messaging, cloud computing. So these are just when some methods of communication. When you are connected to the network, you can use emails, you can use instant messaging, you can use cloud computing. Yeah, so this is the importance of networks. Yeah, it allows faster communication. Yeah, before the introduction of networks, the phones, the Safaricom's, the internet, we would use the poster, and that one was quite inconvenient. But for now, because of internet and then networks, there is the use of electronic communication, and this one we use things like electronic mails, instant messaging, cloud computing, etc. Of course, there are others, even chatting using WhatsApp, social networking, such things. So we are done with this one. Why do computer networks exist? Do we have other reasons? I think these are the main ones. The main ones: to share expensive resources, to enable exchange of files, to allow electronic communications. Now, types of networks. Of course, network is wide, but they usually classified under several categories. So depending on the geographical, so this one, when you talk about types of networks, in this category, we're going to look at types of network depending on geographical area covered by the network. So we have one called the local area network. We'll be talking about this one. Also, we have another one called the metro area network, which is MAN. When you see this one, MAN is metropolitan area network. Also, we have another one which is called the wide area network, which is called WAN. And also we have another one called the personal area network. Of course, we'll be drawing these diagrams in the course of the lesson today, if it will be possible. So we have, do we have, no, none of these ones. These are not the ones that we'll be doing. We'll be looking at network topologies. These ones will just get the definition for each. And once you get an understanding, that's all. You don't draw anything from this. So these are the types of network depending on geographical area covered. So in this category, you determine the type of network depending on the geographical area each one is covering. Like, for example, we have our local area network here, the LAN. So we say a LAN is a network that is used for communication or for communicating among computer devices, usually within an office building or home. So if you have like computer devices within one floor in an office building, one floor kama hii sasa, hii yenye niko sahi, hii floor moja ikuwa iko na computers ziko connected, that is what we call a local area network. Like you have 30 machines in one floor that have been connected. That is an example of a local area network. Then we say LAN enable the sharing of resources such as files or hardware devices that may be needed by multiple users. So they enable sharing of resources such as files, printers, etc. They are limited in size, typically spanning a few hundred meters and no more than a mile. So when you have few hundred meters, like 800 meters, a few meters, that's what we call a local area network. Computers that are connected closely to each other. That is an example. Of course, also another benefit of this network is that they are fast. Unlike the networks like the wide area network, but we'll be looking at that one later. We'll be comparing the wide area network and the local. But the local area network is usually faster in terms of communication. Yeah, the closer you are to each other in a network, the closer the sender and the receiver is, the faster it is, or the fast it is for you to communicate. Also, when you're using the local area network, it requires little wiring, typically a single cable connecting to each device. So when it comes to cabling, you require fewer cables. You don't need a lot of cables. Of course, another one is has lower cost compared to the metropolitan area network, and the wide area network. So this one is cheaper. Okay, LAN can be either wired or wireless. So when you talk about the local area network, you can have wireless or wired. Okay, and of course, we have different types of wired technology in LAN. Like we have the twisted pair, also we have the coaxial, and also we can use fiber optic one. Sijui kama tuko nazo hizo cables, because at times they do bring these cables and they ask you some characteristics of each. They use. I used to have a book back in the days. It had all these notes, but it seems to have gone missing. Maybe I will look for it. And the next lesson will be looking at these cables. We'll be looking at the characteristics of twisted pair. We'll be looking at characteristics of coaxial. That is if I find that book. Characteristics of coaxial, characteristics of fiber optic cable, and such. But as for now, I don't have them. What I have is what I'll give you. But if I find it, I'll be giving you those notes. Now, every LAN uses protocol. So what is protocol? Protocol is a set of rules that govern how packets are configured and transmitted. So every time we talk about LAN, LANs are governed by what we call protocols. Protocol is a set of rules. Whenever you hear of that protocol in networking, it's a set of rules that govern how data is transferred from one computer to another. And of course, there are different types of protocols. And yeah, so there are different types of protocols. Like there is one called TCP/IP. There's another one called OSI layer and such. HTTP, HTTPS, so many. NetBEUI, but we may not go to those. Yeah, those details as of now. So LANs are capable of very high transmission rates. That's what we have already talked about that one. So you can see there, it can transfer 100 MBs per second or 100 GBs per second. So they are quite high in terms of transmission speed. Also, when you talk about LAN has different arrangements. When you talk about computers that are in a local area network, you may find them having different arrangements. Or when you look at that local area network, there are different arrangement of computers in that LAN. And that is what we call topology. Topology is simply arrangement of computers within a local area network. And we have several examples of topology. We have one called the bus topology. Of course, we'll be drawing this one later on, the bus topology. And also, let me see whether we have that one. Yeah, we'll be looking at these topologies in a more detailed sense. Also, we have the star topology, and also we have the ring topology. These are the main topologies or the arrangements that we usually have, but there are others, of course. But there are others. We have hybrid topology. Which other one? I remember the hybrid. for now. But the main ones are these ones: the bus topology, the star topology, and the ring topology. Yeah. So what is the diagram of? This is a diagram of a ring topology. A ring topology. When we talk about a ring topology, it looks like a ring. The arrangement of computers within that network are like a ring. A ring. You know, some of you here are engaged in this lesson, in this class, and you have been given a ring. Okay. Yeah. So that ring is round in shape, and when you hear of a ring topology, it looks like this. It's a ring. Computers are in a loop, are connected in a loop. So if, for example, this guy here, the guy here at the top wants to communicate with the guy at the bottom here, what does he do? His data or his packets has to move through this machine, has to move through this one, has to move through this one, has to move to this, then it arrives to the destination. Okay. Of course, this one has advantages and disadvantages. Because now, if your data has to move through several machines to get to the destination, then it simply means that there will be things to do with security issues. There will be security issues with your data. Okay. Yeah. So we'll be looking at those advantages of such a topology later on in the lesson. Also, you have another topology which is called the star topology. I know most of you prefer looking for stars at night. Okay. Mnaenda mnaangalia star. So that star looks like this. It's a, you know, the star looks like a diamond. You know, is it a diamond? I wish I had a whiteboard ningemonyesha, but this is a star. As you can see, a star is like we have computer there, computer there, computer there. So these are an example of a star. Of course, it looks like a star. And the machine at the middle here is what we call the server. Server. Yeah. So all these machines here are relying on this server here. Of course, it looks like a router in a way, but is a server. We usually call it a server. It serves all these other machines. These machines are called clients. The ones that are relying on the server, they are called clients. So in case I need anything, I'll have to ask the server, and then the server gives me a response. If I need to connect to this guy here at the top, and I'm seated here, I have to first of all talk to the server, and then the server connects me to this guy here. If I have to connect to this guy here, I have to first of all talk to the server, and then the server talks to me. Of course, this one also has advantages and disadvantages in that in case the server fails, then what will happen? I will also not be able to use, we will not be able to use that network. Or let's say, for example, all of us are requesting something from the server. What will happen? The server will be too slow to respond to each of us. Yeah, so those are disadvantages. And also we'll be looking at the advantages later on in the course. Of course, we have the bus topology. The bus topology looks like a bus. The bus, you know, when you look at a bus, the one that you usually travel with when you're coming to work or you're coming to school, that bus, when you look at it from an aerial perspective, how does the bus look like? The bus topology. If you are flying on top of a bus, how would that bus look like? Okay, let me just demonstrate for you here. So a bus looks like this. Of course, we'll be drawing this one later on in the course or in the unit today. So it looks like this, a bus at the top. So later you're going to find that there's a machine here. There's another machine here. There's another one there. Okay, you see now that's a bus topology. They're all connected together. So you have these wires connecting them to the trunk. So that's a wire connecting there. This one here. So at times in an exam, you may find a question asking you to draw the bus topology, draw the ring topology, we have hybrid. We also have another one called hybrid topology. In case I find those notes, I'll also give you for the hybrid topology. And also we have hierarchical hierarchical topology. Those ones are more advanced. And in case you will not find them in this introduction to IT, you will find them in data communications. For those guys who will be going to data communication later on in the course. So this is an example of a bus topology. And also, this is called the trunk. Of course, we'll be drawing this one later on in the course. So sitaelezea sana, acha nikate hapo sasa. Nifike hapo for now. So these are the main ones. We have the ring, the star, and the ring, the star, and the bus topology. So we are done with the local area network. The local area network, we said it has different arrangements. Now when you talk about metropolitan area network, a metropolitan area network is a large computer network that usually spans a city or a large campus. So when you hear of that word metro, what comes into your mind? That metro, you see, it has several meanings, But when you talk about metro is simply means town, let's look from Google. Let's look what it means. Metro meaning, not medicine, meaning. So when you talk about metro, is a major city or a metropolitan region. Okay, the Detroit metro area. Detroit is a city in the US. What else? Metro. So it's a large city, it's a town. What else? Yeah. Of course, we have other metro things. Yeah, but when it comes to the word metro simply means a town. Okay. So when you have a network spanning a town, across a town, that is what we call a metropolitan area network. A MAN is optimized for a larger geographical area than LAN. So you find when you compare the LAN and the MAN, MAN is bigger. It covers larger geographical area, reaching to several blocks of building to entire city. So a MAN might be owned and operated by a single organization, but it usually will be used by many individuals and organizations. So you can have different types of organizations connected to this. Yeah. Or even one organization can run a MAN. Yeah. Like if you have a Wi-Fi, you are providing Wi-Fi for a city. You see, you are one person who's operating that metropolitan area network. But if you have a network that is being operated in a city, that is being operated by several people, different organizations and such, that's still a MAN. It's still a metropolitan area network. So a MAN often acts as a high-speed network to allow sharing of regional resources. Also, MAN covers an area between 50 kilometers diameter. Also, an example of MAN is a telephone company network that provides high-speed DSL to customers and cable TV. So we are done with this, the MAN. And of course, here we have a diagram showing you a MAN, a metropolitan area network. So in this one, you have all these LANs connected. You have a LAN there, a LAN there, a LAN there, a LAN there, a LAN. So these LANs are connecting together. A local area network in this building, a local area in that other building, a local area network in that other building, a local area in that other building. So when you connect them together, you get what we call the MAN. Also, we have this other one here, which is called the wide area network, or the WAN. So this one covers it covers a larger geographical area, such as a country, continent, or even the entire world. So when you talk about WAN, we say that it is that network that covers large geographical area. Can include a city, and can include a country, it can include a continent. And this is where now you find internet. So WAN is two or more LANs connected together the LAN can be the LANs can be many miles apart. Yeah, so what is the meaning of that? The LANs can be many miles apart. So you find that this local area network here in this building, to connect to another LAN, that LAN, other LAN can be even in Malaysia. Okay, you can connect. The one allows us to connect different LANs together. So if I'm here seated in Nairobi, in this LAN here for IIT, I can be able to connect to another LAN, maybe in Malaysia, in Singapore, in those countries, those far countries. Okay, to cover great distances, one may transmit data over least high-speed phone lines or wireless links such as satellites. So mostly when you're connected to the internet, you use satellites for search. You use satellites. Then also we have this one. Multiple LANs can be connected together using devices such as bridges, routers, gateways, which enable them to share data. The world's most popular wide area network is the internet, and most of you are familiar with this internet. The internet, interconnection of networks, different networks. One diagram, so you have this diagram here showing you how one operates. You have different continents connecting together using satellites. Okay, so you have got all these phones, all these laptops, all these palm tops connecting together using satellites, using fiber optics, using which other means? Telephone lines, telephone wires. You can also have microwaves. Those are some telecommunication devices. Microwaves ni easy. I'm sure you've seen such devices. This one, the one that I'm pointing at. These are called microwaves. You may see them on top of buildings. Like for example, here in these pension towers, we have this here, actually in this floor. You can see this type of gadgets. They are called microwaves. Not for cooking. These ones are very different from the ones you use to warm food. Only that they share names. Then also you have another one called the personal area network. Somebody is saying kindly share the slides. This one I will not share. We will write notes. So these ones, the PAN. Of course, I have more detailed notes that are in soft copy. These are just introduction. These ones I may not share because we have more detailed notes here. Like for example, we'll be looking at disadvantages of personal area network. What are the disadvantages of wide area network? What are the disadvantages of LAN, the local area network? What are the advantages of VAS topology? What are the advantages of star topology? Can you kindly mute yourself? There's somebody who's not muting himself. Kindly mute yourself. Yeah, mute yourself. Okay, so what I'm saying is that there are several things that we have to cover. This is just an introduction. There are more detailed notes that I have, and those ones you may actually find them in the exam, like the disadvantages of ring topology. Do you have the disadvantage? These ones don't have the disadvantages. These ones are just slides giving us the introduction into the concepts of these networks. So we were at the wide area network. We've already given this one the diagram. Now we are at the last one, which is called the personal area network. A personal area network We use it for communicating among computers and computing devices. And devices that are in close proximity, like, for example, few meters. Okay, like you have two phones, you are sharing phones, you are sharing data using phones. That's an example of a person with a network. You have a Bluetooth connected to maybe a woofer or something. That's an example of a personal area network. You have a what? You have a remote control trying to change the channel of a TV. Network is a computer network used for communication among computer devices, including phones and personal digital assistants in proximity to an individual's body. The devices may or may not belong to the person in question. Okay, the reach of PAN is typically a few meters. So as you can see here, the PAN is used to communicate among computers in close proximity. Okay, very close. PAN diagram. Here we have got an example of a PAN, like this one here. This diagram, you can see a phone, a laptops connected together, phones connected together. When you have Bluetooth earphones, phones, you have a Bluetooth printer connected to a laptop. That's an example of a PAN. We are done with the slides, not unless there's a question. Those are just but introduction, the introduction to what we are about to cover in the next few lessons. Because these ones, I told you, networking is very wide, and we'll be looking at this one. So let's start by introducing ourselves. I hope you have a book and a pen. We'll be looking at data communication and computer network concepts. Some of these things, I don't have them in soft copy. And these ones, let me see whether I can be able to forward them. Introduction to networks. I can send them. I can send them to you. So there it is. I've sent that copy for that. So kindly get your pen and paper. We do some few things and then we call it a lesson. We'll be writing some few notes on what we have in data communication and computer networks. So here we're going to look at the meaning of the word communication, and also the who are involved in communication. Of course, if you have done communication as a course, you may think we are doing the same things as the people who are doing communication. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are doing entrepreneurship. I don't know whether in entrepreneurship you deal with the communication. Who are the people? What is involved in communication? We usually have the sender, we have the medium, and also we have the receiver. So write down in your book data communication and computer network concepts. So that's what we're looking at, data communication and computer network concepts. So for me, I would just write computer network concepts. So this one, we can start by defining what we call a communication. So what is communication? Communication involves transferring messages from one point to another. Yeah, so this is a very fast point on what communication is all about. It involves transferring messages from one point to another. And that is also what happens when you're talking to me. We are communicating. You're transferring a message from you. You are the sender, and to me that I'm the receiver. So it is transferring messages from one point to another. Then also we can say data communication, because also we are looking at data communication. Data communication, DC, is a process of transferring data from one computer to another. So when you talk about data communication, is when you transfer, you are transferring data using computers. Okay, let's look at the elements of communication. So we have few elements. Of course, if you have done communication, you know what you're talking about. One, we have a sender. So with a sender, source of message. You can see this is a source of a message. Is a source. So that is when you talk about this, the sender is the person who's sending the message, is the one who creates the message to be sent. Then number two, we also have another person who is called a receiver. Who is a receiver? This is the destination of the message. Yeah, so once you're done with that, also this one we can say it receives the message and it is called a sync. It receives a message and it's called sync. So a sync and a receiver, they are all the same. When you find that word there, a sync is the same as receiver. Then also we have another one is called a transmission medium. Transmission Here's another one. When you talk about transmission medium, this carries a message from one point to another. This carries the message from one point to another. You hear of this one, that it carries a message from one point to another, is from the sender to the receiver. Eh? Yeah, from sender to receiver. Yeah, so that is what we have in the introduction. Then also we have an illustration here of what we mean by components of computer communication system. So these ones are components. Components of what? Of a computer communication system. So we usually, this is a diagram. We're going to draw a small diagram like this. So you have one there. There it is. So this is called a sender. And then this one is what we call receiver. And then we have a medium. This is what we're calling the medium here. That line is the transmission medium. Sometimes it could be a phone, wireless, wired. That's why it's important to look at those wires, because at times you can be used questions. They can ask you questions of the mediums of transmission that we usually have. We can have fiber optics, we can have satellites, we can have microwaves, all those ones. And they also have advantages and disadvantages. That's why I'm saying this thing is pretty wide, it's quite wide. But for now, we're just going to cover the basics as we continue. So we are done with that. So this is a diagram of components of computer communication system. We have the sender there. A sender is the source of the message, the medium or the transmission medium, and the receiver. So we are done with this. We are done with this. There's something else that I want to introduce you to. It's called data transmission modes. This is another very examinable bit. Transmission modes. So when you talk about data transmission modes, there are three methods of data transmission modes. There are three methods of data transmission. There are three methods of data transmission. One, they are here. One, we can talk of simplex. I don't know whether there's somebody who has ever come across these terminologies. We have half duplex. And then also we have another one called the full duplex. So those are the three methods of data transmission. Now here's where students make mistakes. Most students confuse the modes of data transmission with what we call methods of data transmission. No, modes. These are called data transmission modes. These ones. There are three modes. Actually, this one you can just say modes. there are 3 modes instead of methods, because there's another one there which is somehow similar. 3. Yeah, this is data transmission modes. Yeah, there's another one which is similar to this, and students usually mostly make mistakes, or they confuse the two. Transmission methods. Yeah, there's another one called transmission methods, data transmission methods. There's the transmission modes, these are 3, and there's another one called data transmission methods. So that brings, let's start with the first one here and get an understanding of what we have, what we call simplex. What is simplex? When we talk about simplex transmission mode, what is it? So when you talk about simplex, this one, it is a data transmission method that involves transmission of data. It is a data transmission method that involves transmission of data in one direction only. So when you talk about when you're communicating one direction only, is what we call the simplex. I'll be explaining what we mean by that. And here is a diagram. It's similar to this one. It looks like this. We have there, and then so we're going to draw also, and then we have an arrow showing where the direction of flow of information, and then we can say that this one is what we call the simplex. So this is a simple diagram. Most of the times in an exam case, they will ask you to define and then draw or illustrate using a diagram the 3 modes of data transmission. So you define and then you draw. So here, this is what we call the sender. And then on this other side, we have the receiver. The sender and the receiver. So let's have an explanation of that. First of all, make that drawing, and then I'll give you the explanation. We have many students today, 22. I hope that most of you guys do attend the computer application class. Most of you are not supposed to be in that computer application, and mostly we find ourselves being around 10 students. So it seems there are guys who are in this class and are not attending. They have never attended the computer application class. Yeah, so make sure you make a point of attending that computer application class. We began Excel last week, and Excel is not easy. It's not easy. It's not like Microsoft Word. Yeah, so if you miss an Excel class, it simply means you may miss an entire 20 marks. Yeah, so make sure you attend that. Actually, from Excel and Access, those ones, if you miss lessons, it's hard for you to pass that exam, the Excel and the Access, because they are not easy. You have to be taught. Unlike Microsoft Word, you can do your own personal work, your own personal research. But for the Access and Excel, especially when you get to the functions, the if function, the what if functions, there are so many functions in Excel that you need somebody to guide you through them. So now, and of course you have paid. Remember, you have paid. Those lessons you are paid. So if you're not attending, your money is getting. You are losing your own money. So let's have an explanation of what we mean by simplex. When you talk about simplex, it's communication. It's data transmission method that involves transmission of data in one direction. An example is when you are listening to a radio station, like you are listening to Maina Kingangi in the morning, or you are listening to Chiraka Kagia or somebody like that, or whichever show you are listening to. You could be listening to Kikuyu station. So those guys, when they are talking to you, you can only hear them, but you cannot respond to them. They can send data to you, but you cannot be able to send back a confirmation message that you are actually receiving the data they are sending you. So they do it hoping that there's somebody out there who is receiving. They don't know. They are not quite sure whether you are receiving or not. They don't even have a signal somewhere showing them that we have several people in this nation who are listening to what you are saying. So that is what we call the simplex. Data transmission involves in one direction only. And in an exam case, they can actually ask you, like, give an example of a simplex. So one example I've given you is a radio station. When a radio station is transmitting data, they transmit in one direction, and there is simply no transmission. There is no feedback as to whether the information has reached to the receiver, or as the receiver has received that message. Okay. Another example of simplex is when you send data to a printer. When you send data to a printer, another example of a simplex in that you can't really tell whether that data has been printed or not. Can you be able to tell? You cannot really be able to tell until you go to the printer to check whether that data has been printed. Okay, that's what we call the simplex. The simplex communication. Communication is in one direction. There is no feedback as to whether there is. So let's look at this example here because of the exam. Just in case you find that question in the exam, you can say example. Example, we have data transmission. Data transmission from a computer. From a computer to a line printer, So there is actually no confirmation as to whether you have printed or not. So that is, we are done with the simplex. I hope it's clear. Now let's go to the next one. So this one, the simplex, you find it's not a very effective way of communicating. Yeah. So how do guys in the radio station know whether you are listening to them? They keep on engaging you. Post a comment on my Twitter handle. Send a message, free message, so that I see the feedback. Yeah. Help them to know when you post a comment on their wall, they know that now you are listening. And the more comments they get, the more well they are paying. Because now the station knows that this guy really is selling our station. But if you get only a few comments, you can as well get fired. That's a very dangerous job. It's not secure at all. It all depends with the number of followers that you have. Then we have a half duplex. What is half duplex? This one, we can define it as it is a data transmission method is data transmission method that involves transmission in both direction but only in one direction at a time. Yeah, so it is data transmission method that involves transmission in both directions, but only in one direction at a time. So this one we can also say that one computer might transmit data, and the other computer, one computer might transmit data, and the other computer responds with an acknowledgement. So this is how it works. You send, people can give you like a response. When you send data, you can get a response in this one. So let's have a diagram for this. We have that one there, We have an arrow here. That's an arrow. And also we have another arrow from the receiver here, moving from that direction to that. And then this is what we call the sender. And this is what we call the receiver. So the sender and the receiver are there. This is what we call the half duplex. Half duplex. So there is our diagram illustrating what a half duplex is. And when you talk about the half duplex, we have two people communicating together. But at least this one, you have some feedback from the receiver. If you are the sender, you get some feedback from the receiver. But what usually limits this one is that you cannot communicate at the same time. Like the receiver has to wait for the sender to first of all finish the message, and then the receiver can respond, okay, afterwards. Okay, and we have an example for this one, which is like a walkie-talkie. You have the walkie-talkie that the policemen use, or the over. Most people call it the over. Hello, over. So you know how they talk, eh? Okay, it's a long time since I heard them conversing over those walkie-talkies, eh? But they have first of all, somebody has to wait for the receiver to confirm whether they have received the message. Yeah. So they keep on checking. Once they are done with the message, they give like a signal asking the receiver to confirm whether they have received. That's why they say over, so that the receiver can actually can confirm whether they have received the message. Okay, over. It can also mean the message is over. Over. That's why they are saying over, because every time they talk, it's over. The message is over, so that now the receiver can respond back. Okay, so we are done with that. So you can give an example there. We have a walkie-talkie, which is used by, an example is a walkie-talkie used by the security people. Walkie-talkie. Is that a spelling? Walkie-talkie. Let me check on the internet. Then spelling for walkie-talkie. Guys, here it is. Guys, that's a spelling? Walkie-talkie. Now we go to the last one, the last type of data transmission mode, which we call the full duplex. This is what you are familiar with, full duplex. Now for the full duplex, we can have an introduction and say is a data transmission method that involves transmission in both directions simultaneously. In both directions simultaneously. So that is what we call the full duplex. Is when you communicate or you transmit data in both directions simultaneously. Then also you can say a special switching circuit, switching circuit is required to allow simultaneous transmission. So that is so let's draw this diagram here for these full duplex. You have your sender there, and also you have your receiver. I don't know whether we have two arrows at the same time. Let me check whether we have two arrows. Yeah, this one is more effective. So this is an example of full duplex. So we have the sender and the receiver. So when you look at this one here, the sender and the receiver, they can be able to send data simultaneously, like you have in your phone. You can be able to talk with the receiver at the same time without maybe anything. You can talk simultaneously without having to wait for each other, for one person to keep quiet, for the other person to talk. So that's what we call this phone, the full duplex. The full duplex. Any question up to that point? Any question? Do you have anybody with a question? Any concern? Now we are done with that. Now, I think from next week, most likely, which I would have wanted to continue because with the last concept here, to cover. So we have these computer networks which we have covered, and the introduction, there it is. And then also we have this one here. I think we just introduce and then we call it a class. We just write a brief introduction of this, and then we continue from the next class. Is what we call synchronous and asynchronous transmission. That is what we're going to start from. We're going to start from here next week. From next week here, synchronous or synchronous. That one synchronous. From the word synchronism. Synchronous and asynchronous. Transmission. Yeah, so this one, when you talk about networking, there are so many technical terms that you'll come across as we proceed. There are so many technical terms that are in these networks. Yeah. So these are, when you hear of that word asynchronous or synchronous, it comes from the word synchronism or synchronizing. Okay. An example of synchronizing is when you are doing what? When you are searching for a device, you want to pair two devices for communication. Two devices, you have a phone and another phone. So the phone is searching the other phone, and the other phone is. So once they find each other, that is what we're calling synchronism or synchronizing. So we have two types of synchronism. We have the synchronous and the asynchronous. We'll be looking at each of these as we continue. I can just give you the definition for this and say that data transmission line is carried in either synchronous or asynchronous mode. Carried either using synchronous or asynchronous mode. So from the next lesson, we'll be looking at what we mean by asynchronous mode, what we mean by synchronous mode. Then we introduce ourselves to computer networks, the different types of computers used in networks. Yeah, differences between LAN, types of topologies, advantages of those topologies. And then also we'll be looking at the internet. Alafu tutaona kama tutamaliza hii topic, lakini ni kubwa. Types of networks, configuration of networks, internet and internet uses. Yeah, types of networks are easy kwa sawa. Sasa, so I think with that we've come to the end of the lesson. Yeah, any question? If you have no question, I think we've come to the end of the lesson. Have a nice day. We'll meet again in the next lesson. And those people who have not been attending computer application, remember the classes are on Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesday and Fridays. Check your timetable.
Cortex is protection, preventive. Cortex, what else does it?
Kamuhunjia nao mtu amefanya kakua kama the little the pastor, now it is Kamuhunjia. Now that role is like a pastor who you know, he's young, physically, even for age, and he came from the village and came to Nairobi, and then anajifanyanga sana ati ameokoka sana, analala mbinguni, anateremka kwa dunia. But watu washamjua huko Nairobi, so watu wanajua, wanamwambianga yeye anajifanyanga ameokoka, so wanamwambianga hata
The spotted hyena is one of Africa's most dominant predators. They are incredible hunters, but also infamous scabbing other predators. Hyenas are protected your